discussing politics, economics, and pragmatic spirituality. This is the Arch Advocate Show. Welcome back to the Arch Advocate Show for the new week and the new month. Lots to get to. Oh boy, Antifa. Wow. You guys see the video of that guy getting starched? Yikes. All right, so real quick, we've got a lot to get to. There's a lot happening in the world right now, and particularly in the United States. If you're listening, like this is, I know that there's listeners all over the world, but let's talk about America today, all right? As we saw over the weekend at the Portland, I guess it was like a prayer rally, just a bunch of fellas, ladies and gentlemen, getting together to pray. And we saw evidently the terrorist group, the people who have been deemed a terrorist group, which, by the way, they still have their own pages on Twitter. So Twitter standards, whole different conversation, and we will certainly tailor that into the show as time goes on. But Antifa is a terrorist group, and so they get in there and they go after these patriots that are there to pray. And at one point, somebody, an Antifa guy, pulls out a police-style baton. All right, now, just so you know, listen, if you're new to the show, it will become very quickly clear to you that I am a word snob. All right, I place a great deal of value on the meanings of words. All right, because we're losing those things. We're losing in our culture. Or not losing, but to a certain degree, we have lost things like the meaning of truth and objectivity, and we've lost the sacred, right? We forfeited those things in the name of convenience, and right now we are being called back to the truth, back to the transcendent sacred, right? And away from relativism. And in my opinion, this is a good thing. It's going to be a very difficult thing and has already proven to be a bloody thing. All right? There has already been bloodshed. So the idea of getting through this without bloodshed, that is no longer on the table because blood has already been shed. It started with that Eric, whatever his last name was, the bike lock guy. Hitting somebody over the head with a bike lock, okay, that's attempted murder, right? When you pull out a baton, right, that's different than picking up a stick, right? A baton is a weapon. It is a deadly weapon, and when you pull it out, that's called brandishing. And I see a lot of people misusing that word brandishing, and brandishing doesn't mean that you have it on you. It means that you have it out and at the ready. And we saw in this example over the weekend, a young fella had pulled out, an Antifa guy, had pulled out a police baton and was waving it and trying to strike his supposed enemy, right? Well, that's attempted murder, and it's brandishing. It's felony brandishing, and it's aggravated. Now, whenever you hear that word aggravated, there's aggravated and aggravated. All right, and one of them means there's other circumstances around. Whenever you hear aggravated assault, it's like, well, obviously the guy was aggravated. It's like, no, aggravated. It means that there were other things going on around that had to do with the scenario, right? So this guy pulls out a baton, which right there, that's felony brandishing. It's felony assault because we saw him swinging it at the guy. And then that guy that was being attacked with the baton, obviously a trained fighter, and he gets in on him and clocks him so hard on his jaw that he just got starched, right? The guy was paralyzed before he even hit the ground. You can see it. He was all the way asleep, and then even moments later, his buddies had to pick him up, and what that would indicate is that kid that got struck right, by that guy that was getting attacked, that guy's life will never be the same. You cannot get knocked out to that degree and be out that long. That means he was concussed severely. And concussions, like, we've kind of gotten used to that term in America. It's like concussion. Concussion means brain damage. You know what I mean? Like, that guy who felt so strongly about attacking these people that were there to just meet up and pray. Like, he felt so strongly about it that he got himself into a situation where his life will never be the same. His brain will never function the way it did just moments before again. And that's where we're at. It's like, why would you risk so much that you would be willing to commit a felony assault on people that you don't even know because you perceive them to be Nazi? It's like, where is your objective truth? Right? That's all subjective. It's like, wait a minute, you just labeled that person a Nazi and therefore it's okay to kill Nazis, because it's okay to kill Nazis, right? That's what Americans do with Nazis. We kill them and we stomp them out. That's why we don't throw that word around. That's you label somebody with that word, that's a death sentence. Because as Americans, that's what we do with Nazis. So this guy just deems in his mind, just out of completely subjective air, like, oh, I'm just going to call this guy a Nazi, and then I'm going to pull out a weapon and try to brain this guy with it. You know, if that guy with the baton had been successful, if he would have connected with that other guy and connected with his skull, that guy very easily could have died. And we get very used to watching movies where people get hit in the head with damn, axe handles and whatever. It's like, and then they keep fighting. It's like, dude, that's not how that actually works. You get hit in the head with a baton at full swing, you're gonna die, right? Your brain is gonna swell. It's going to exceed the capacity of your cranium, and you're gonna die. That guy was there willing to kill that guy with that baton. That's where we're at as a society, and just as that's kind of the intro to today's show, is that I've been seeing in like on the left media, like mainstream media, like CNN and MSNBC, and even look, I keep the Young Turks on my Facebook page just because, like, I look at the titles of their shows and their productions and whatever, and it's laughable. I don't understand like how people could think the way that those people think. And and be accused of the things that those people are accused of and still have any sort of followership. But one of the trends I've been seeing is that there's this, like on the Young Turks, it says Republicans are running scared, and what it is, it's like this sort of like trying taunting sort of language where it's like, oh yeah, the Republican, the conservatives, right, the Christian people, my people, we're scared, right? Well, here's the truth of the matter, dear liberal, if you're listening. The fact is we are scared, all right? But not for reasons that you would think. We're not scared of you. We're scared for you. For this very reason, right? This weekend's example of that guy getting starched and laid out on the ground for minutes, that's what's in your future, leftist, if you don't calm down and return to the table of reason and get some sort of definition of the difference between objectivity and subjectivity, right? Because here's the thing. You are grossly outnumbered, all right? Right now, just let me pull this up here for you. Right now, there are approximately 2,204,892 people serving active duty and on active reserve. And now, reserves and active reserves are it's different, right? Active reserves means if you get a phone call, you go to work, right? There's over 2 million, 2.2 million, 2,200,000 people that are active duty right now, all right? So, you can say that you have the moral high ground and that socialism is the way and God is dead and all that stuff, but here's the thing. The military, right? When you go into active duty military service, we all swear the same oath, right? That's 2,200,000 people who swore an oath to protect the Constitution and to receive and to obey the orders of the President of the United States. That's 2.2 million. Now you might be thinking, well, yeah, but a lot of those people, they could be on our side. There are some people that are active duty that are on your side, but we actually have the numbers for that as well. They're consistent, right? Military people overwhelmingly vote Republican. I mean, it's not even close, all right? So there's just that one. All right, 2.2 million people. Do you think that you have 2.2 million people on your side? Right? How would you find out those numbers? Well, it's actually pretty simple. You can go on and you can see how many views the Young Turks videos gets. You can watch the ratings of CNN, get an idea of how many people actually listen to that stuff loyally, right? You're nowhere near 2 million people. Nowhere near it. So that's just number one. And keep in mind here, remember, all this virtue signaling and people on the left thinking, oh, I'm right, and people on the right saying, oh, I'm right. Well, get away from all that. Let's just go inside the numbers, right? Because the numbers don't lie. 2.2 million active duty military personnel. And on top of that, right? These people that are walking around with you every day in society, those people that are behind you in the line at your coffee place, hopefully Dunkin' Donuts and not Starbucks. Everybody knows Dunkin' Donuts has the best coffee anyways. Not a sponsor. Those people next to you on the highway, right? That guy that's cleaning the floor at your work, whatever, right? In our society, there is approximately 340 million people. And out of all of those people, 7.5% of those people are people who served in the armed forces, right? Now, so do the math. What's 7% of 300 million? What is it? It's 21 million, right? So 340 million. What is that? 21 plus it's 24. It's roughly 25 million people who at one point or another in their life served in active duty service, right? So that's 25 million plus 2. So it's 27 million people. Do you think you have those numbers? You think that there's 27 million of you who are trained to fight, who are trained to kill at a distance so as to not let your enemy get close enough to you to get that kind of shot in? What's the end result? What is the end result of all of this violence? Because now what do you think is going to happen? Now that everybody has seen that and seen, like, look, if I gather in public with my friends so I can pray or so that I can protest peacefully, if I can, if I do any of these things and I am met by this sort of resistance, I'm going to have to show up armed. Because I'm certainly not going to give up my right to protest, and I'm certainly not going to leave myself vulnerable to getting brained by some asshole with a police baton. What these people, man, it's like, what do you think is going to happen here? It's going to be more bloodshed. And eventually you're going to have approximately 25 million people that are just going to say enough. And they're going to do what they were trained to do. And they are going to do what they swore an oath to do, to protect the Constitution of the United States and obey the orders of the president. That's what's in your future, Antifa. So yeah, we are afraid, very afraid, because it's not going to end well for you. It's not going to end in victory for you. There is no scenario where this ends well for you, because not only do you not have the numbers, not only are you grossly and obscenely outgunned, but you also have the low ground. Your ideology is we want open borders. Now that leadership in Mexico has told their citizens, everybody, let's bum rush the United States, right? Like, that's coming. And if you're on the side of being for that, It's like I don't think you've thought this all the way through. What you're asking for is a war. And the reason why you have not received it yet is because all of us are sitting here waiting for you people to calm down. And if you keep pushing, you're going to get what you're asking for. And it's not going to end well for you. Because we're on the side of truth and justice. We're on the side of, hey, listen, the Constitution is a perfect document and we can run our country based on that. And we're on the side of getting money out of politics and making it so that politicians aren't, no longer are in a position to just run amok. It's getting very close, and we are afraid, but we're afraid for you. Because once you pop the cork on, attacking fellow citizens, right? That's not an easy thing to do. That's not a decision that is made lightly. Nor is it something that something that happens where you do it, right? You let's say you're one of these Antifa guys. What if that guy with the billy club, with the baton, what if when he was attacking that other guy, the other guy pulled out a gun and killed him? He would have been well within his rights, right? To stand his ground and protect his own life. He would have been well within his rights to protect his own life. And then that guy would have had to have spent the rest of his life knowing that he slayed a fellow citizen, even though it would have been justified. You know what I mean? Like there would have been a place in his mind that he could go to and say, well, it was him or me. But there's still something that comes along. Listen, taking the life of another human being is as about of an unnatural, the most unnatural thing that you can do. You know what I mean? It's not something that comes, even when it's completely justified. There's no getting out of that scenario without any sort of consequence. You know what I mean? Mentally, spiritually. Like that's going to put you in a weird place with your God and with your country and with, with your family. It's going to make you feel and think badly, And so yes, to these liberals, to these leftists, yes, we are afraid. We are afraid for you because you're not going to win, and it's going to be very bad for you. So moving on. Hey, good news, everybody. Good news. And you'll have to forgive me. I'm all out of Black Rifle coffee. Black Rifle Coffee, folks. They are not a sponsor, but I'm going to be reaching out to them. But they've got the good coffee. Are you a coffee drinker? Are you still drinking Starbucks like a damn commie? All right, well, stop drinking Starbucks. All right? Filthy socialists. Speaking of filthy socialists, good news, everyone. Good news. Everything's going to be free. Free college. Whee! So the Democrats are rejoicing right now because a young lady, a 28-year-old girl, in some district in New York, I'm assuming close to, somewhere in the city there, has won as a Democratic socialist. Right? Again, God, the left is just rejoicing over this. Now, look, I've seen some of the discussions about this, and what the left is saying is like, hey, we won. Yep, you did. You won. You sure did. You got that. You got that one. But let's not just completely get away from the numbers here. Less than 5% of registered voters showed up to vote in that election. Not 5% of the voters showed up and voted for her. No. All the people that live in that district who are American, U.S. citizens, U.S. Americans, U.S. citizens who are registered to vote in that district, all of them, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Tea Party, whoever, all of the people, less than 5% of all the people who are registered to vote showed up to vote at all. All right, that's not victory. That's apathy. Right, and this is dear Republican, right, dear Christian, dear conservative, right. Even if you're an atheist, but you're a conservative, if you're a gay dude and you're a conservative, well, whatever, you must vote. You must vote every time. You must vote. We can never allow this to happen again. What has been going on for, I don't know, 60 years in our country, we can never let this happen again. Never. At no point for the rest of your life, if you can hear my voice right now, at no point in the rest of your life will there ever be a reasonable excuse for you to not vote. Right? There can be reasons, like, well, I was in a coma and I was in the hospital. Okay, you get a pass. But dude, if you are old enough to be a registered voter and you are legal to be a registered voter, you need to register to vote and you need to vote. Every time. Not just this November. You need to vote this November. Not just in 2020. But you need to vote every single time. Because if you don't, apathy will place these idiots in power. That girl didn't win. She was the benefactor, right? She received the benefit of an apathetic society. And that's what happens when you don't vote. When you don't vote, you put the Democrats in office. That's their whole game. If you show up to vote, we win. You must vote. And so looking at this girl, it's like, man, that old rhetoric of like, oh, we're gonna have all this free stuff. It's gonna be like Costco on a Saturday at 2:00 in the afternoon, man. And instead of getting a half a taco with a dollop, a half of a rolled taco with a dollop of guacamole, you're gonna have free cars, man. A new car. We're gonna have free education, man. We're gonna have free housing, jobs for everybody. No explanation as to who's gonna pay for it. It's just gonna be free, man. And it's strange that they don't teach economics in Economics 101 anymore. Like when it comes to discussing, listen, the definition of economics is like the study of the distribution of scarce resources. That is the right definition, and it's a good one. But it actually it has more to do with than just commodities and currencies, right? But when you're talking about economics as it applies to money, there is no such thing as free. It doesn't. Somebody somewhere has to put in some work. You say, well, we want to make it so that this 18-year-old can go to college without paying for it. Okay, well, that's fine. We can have that discussion, but that's not what you said. You said free. So are you saying that professor is going to go to work without pulling a salary? Well, no, of course not. Okay, well, then that's not free. Right? Well, no, we're going to make the millionaires and the billionaires, let me comb my head with a balloon, we're going to make them pay for it. It's like, well, what if they decide that it's too much and they move out of your state? Then what are you going to do? Well, we'll have to seize their property. Now we have it. You understand, like, when these people talk about we're just going to tax the rich and that's how we're going to pay for it, it's like, we live in a free market. Those people are free to move. They're free to retire and say, you know what? I'm just going to clock out and I'm going to wait until you people punch yourself out. Right? I'm going to pick up stakes. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to take my, all this money that I've amassed. And I'm just going to move to Montana. Get some fresh air. Do a little fishing. Maybe write a book. And there won't be anything that you can do to stop it. And you say, oh, Pete, don't be ridiculous. People don't do that. People are doing that right now, and they have been for a long time in California. I was born and raised in California. There's plenty of people that love California as much as I do. Nobody on this planet loves California more than I do. I love California, and I would not live there. I wouldn't live there. I wouldn't live there if you paid me to live there. It's insane. The taxes, and the misuse of money, and the broken promises by politicians, I wouldn't do it. And these, you might think like, oh, we're just going to tax the rich people and make them pay for everything. There's no obligation for those people to continue to earn money in your state. That's why all these people are leaving California. It's like, well, I can move to Texas where there's relatively no taxes, right? There's income tax and whatever, but I can move to Texas to a place where everybody's going to be glad that I'm there because I'm employing people, and my state will reward me instead of robbing me. Instead of robbing me, my state, if I move to Texas, my state will reward me for being an employer. They will encourage me, right? I would rather live somewhere where even my government is appreciative of all the hard work that I'm doing. You know what I mean? It's happening, and it's not new. It's been happening for a long time. So it's like you get into these conversations with you, and again, this is a 28-year-old. When I was 28, I'm sure that I felt very grown up. And I'm sure now that I'm 45, 20 years from now, when I'm 65, I'm going to look back on this very conversation and think, what a young rookie. You know what I mean? Because I look back at when I was 28, it's like, dude, when I was 28, I was stupid. 28-year-old, dude, if you're 28 years old, your brain has been fully formed for 3 years, right? You're a grown-up now, legally. Like, you can vote and you can rent a car and you can buy alcohol and whatever. Like, there's nothing, prohibiting you. It's like, but you're a kid. So this rich kid, this girl, she wins this seat because nobody showed up to vote, and, that's how she slid in under the cracks. Less than 5% of people, all people, even bothered to vote. She shows up and says, "Oh, it's victory for the socialists, man. We're finally gonna live the socialist dream. It's not right that people don't have homes. It's not right that people don't have enough food. It's not right that people don't have access to medical care and premium education for their children and that sort of thing." It's like, that's right. Those are definitely problems, right? It isn't right. It's not good that people cannot afford their medical care. It's not good that people do not have sovereignty over the education of their own children. Yeah, there's a lot of problems there. But when you show up saying that you're going to fix it all by taking the possessions of other people, wow, we've got a problem. We have a problem that there have been House resolutions on. I can't remember the name of it. It was like the Anti-Communist Act of 1950, whatever, 53. I don't remember what it was. But it's like when you show up talking about socialism, it's like, dude, we have acts of Congress on the books that will make sure that you are not successful in taking the property of other people. Property rights. Now that's a word that communists and socialists, they hate that. Nobody has a right to property. Actually, it's built right into the fabric of our society. We do have rights to property. And not only that, but it's a spiritual thing. It goes right to the core of who we are as free people. And you start talking about taking property away from other people to provide for people who either can't or won't work for it on their own, that's, you're gonna have a problem. And you're going to have people, over 25 million people who are ready to fight that, so that never happens in our land, so that our children can grow up free with the knowledge that not only are they free, but they are free to prosper. They are free to work hard and be rewarded for their good, hard work. So as we move forward through this time, keep in mind, this is although it is scary, right? It is scary. I am very afraid. I have friends that are leftists. Friends. Men and women that I love that are full-on leftists. I fear for them. I hope to God that those, the people that I know that are leftists, I hope they never take to the streets. Because if I meet them there, I'm going to see that as the theater of battle, and I won't allow anybody to do harm to somebody else's constitutional rights, not even my loved ones. Not anybody. Because I swore an oath. I swore an oath that would never happen on my watch. And there's over 25 million people who are like-minded with me. Right? Patriots, just like you. And then there's the other people too, because listen, I failed to make this point earlier. It's like, look, there's 25 million either active duty or former active duty military people. These are people that, yeah, I know a lot, some of them were in the Air Force or whatever, but these are 25 million people who've been trained to fire a weapon. Which by itself doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it's like, well, if you went through rifle training from the military, you would know. It's like there's a lot that goes into that, So you've got those 25 million people, and then you have their sons and their daughters, and all of the sons and daughters for the last 60 years, right? The kids, the men and women who they didn't serve in the military, but their dad did, or their grandpa did, or their uncle did, and they trained them. How many more people are like that? They're patriots, they are patriots, and they have never served in active duty military service, but they don't. Please, dear liberal, believe me when I tell you, like, those people do not love the Constitution and love the freedom and the peace of the United States any less than I do, right? They're not. If you looked at how much they love America between that guy, that guy who he never served in the military, and General James Mattis, if there was a scale for that, there would be no difference in how much they love this country. So the numbers are, quite a bit more than 25 million people, but 25 million people that we can see for sure, that are living and walking around in American culture right now. I fear for those people because it cannot end well for them. There's no, mathematically, there's no way, maybe socialist Jesus comes back, and grants them all a victory, but that's not going to happen. So that's it for today. Just an encouragement. Listen, this is our time to realize, as Christian people, right? The church has gotten very soft over the last several decades, right? And it actually started an even longer time ago. But we've gotten soft. We've gotten pluralistic. We've gotten more into religion than the point of the religion, right? More into the ceremony than the story behind the ceremony. And that time, we are being awakened right now. And I want to give you this encouragement and sort of a rebuke, if you will, if you can receive it, right? We are going through this time. It's like any time, like if you're a married guy or girl, like if you're married, you know that, getting into arguments is it's part of the process, right? And if you have any sort of self-reflective life of the mind, then you know that every time you get into an argument, even if you know for a fact that the other person is 100% wrong, you know that the angst and the frustration, like part of that's on you. Part of it, I don't know what part, but part of it's on you. How do you know that? Well, because you were involved. If you were involved in that argument, then part of it is your fault, right? Like going back to how we started off the show, that guy getting starched, that Antifa guy just getting absolutely bell rung by that good patriot there on the video. Well, listen, it was clearly the guy with the baton's fault that he got laid out like that. However, two people were involved, right? Now that guy that laid that other guy out, he has some responsibility in that. I'm not saying it's bad, right? But it's something that you can't deny. It's like, well, the two people were there, so two people are now going to have to wade through it. So in all things, whenever there's a problem, it's like, in my opinion, I'm not giving life advice here. If you want that, go talk to Tony Robbins. But, anytime that there's something that goes on, don't blame other people. Don't blame your wife. Don't blame Antifa, blame yourself. You know what I mean? When we see students coming out of colleges saying, like, oh, science is king, but I can't figure out what gender means. It's like, okay, well, how did we let this happen? As a society, how did I let this happen? This is a tragedy. These kids are coming out of college 30, 60, $180,000 in debt, and they know nothing. They know the opposite of something. They know they got dumber. They came out of college, right? It used to be like, oh, I'm a university graduate. It's like, oh, well, here's some respect for you. Not anymore. These people are coming out of colleges and they're like, oh, there's 56 different genders and you have to call me Z or Zer. And it's like, whoa, 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 right? That's a problem. That's a huge problem. And it's real easy to look at those people and say, well, they're weak, right? They're inept and they're going to fail in life. Like, it is real easy to do that because you're right. However, there is something on this, in this this mess that we're in as a country. There has to be a component of it that is my fault. My fault. Pete Dobson. Right? It's my fault that all of this is happening. How? Well, I don't know. I'm going to have to sit and think about it for a little while. Right? Maybe it's because I've only voted twice in my entire life. Right? Is it possible that my voting record is, in part, a very small, but a part nonetheless? Is it possible that it's my fault that this is happening? Right? Is it possible? Well, I have to consider that because this is a huge problem. And given what I know about growing up in the church and watching the last 45 years of the history of the Protestant Christianity in America, I'd have to say it's my fault. And Catholics, you guys have to do the same, right? And by the way, don't be writing me talking crap about Catholics or talking crap about politics. Like, I am so beyond that argument, I really don't even want to discuss it. But it's like, just like Catholics right now, you're hearing a lot of clamoring because there's all this sexual abuse going on in the Catholic Church. Well, right now there's a lot of Catholics, men, family men, who are looking at this going, okay, well, perhaps the reason this keeps happening is because I'm not going around knocking people out. You know what I mean? Maybe the reason why this keeps happening to these poor innocent children is because I have not stood up and taken, if I know of a priest that's done this, because I have not taken action, perhaps it is my fault that this keeps happening. You know what I mean? Like, at a certain point when the problems get so big, eventually, like, if you're a reasonable person, if you are an objective person, you're going to have to stop and say, okay, is there any possible way that my actions or inactions have something to do with this? Right? You have to do that. And so what we're looking at right now as a country, as Christian people, we have to do that. We have to do that, or we are going to miss the lesson. And then we're going to have to repeat this horrible nightmare 50 years from now or whatever, right? So let's do it now. Let's repent now. Let's find out, like, well, how much of this is on me? Can we do that? And as an encouragement, I'm going to do just that. I'm gonna go over just this real quick little passage of scripture here for you. And this is from Hosea. Now listen, I love nerding out on scripture. And the way that I approach scripture is fun, right? When I go to scripture, like, if I see something that looks weird or if I don't understand it, like, I'll nerd out on it until I do. So I want to read this passage from Hosea. It's Hosea chapter 2. Verse 14 and 15. It says, therefore, behold, I will allure her and bring her into the wilderness, and I will speak tenderly to her. Right? And that's God talking about his people. He says, I'm going to use romantic language to get you out into the woods so that we can be alone. Right? It's very tender, because he says, behold, I will allure her and I will bring her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. Right? So this is a very romantic thing. It's a very intimate expression. He goes on to say, and there I will give her vineyards and make the valley of Achor a door of hope. And there she shall answer, as in the days of her youth, as the time when she first came out of the land of Egypt. So what kind of sticks out there? Like, huh? You know, when you read that and you're like, what? The Valley of Achor. And what is the Valley of Achor? I nerded out on this one time and it was fascinating. And I will give, like, because when you read scripture, it's like, you know, there's all the these and thous, and there's like all this weird speech that just doesn't make any sense because it's not how we talk anymore, right? But then there's things like this where it says, then I will give her vineyards and make the valley of Achor a door of hope. Why? That's a weird thing to say. What do you mean the valley of Achor, a door of hope? What's a door of hope? What's the valley of Achor? Why is that significant, right? Now, before I get to explaining this, let me make my point first, and then I'll explain it, all right? We are in the valley of Achor right now, as a nation. Let me qualify that statement. When Joshua was in charge, right, Moses had died, and now, you know, Joshua was the head of the Israelites, right? They were traveling around, and God had told Joshua. Did I say Jacob earlier? Joshua. God told Joshua. He said, "Look, there's these people over here, and they're into all kinds of child sacrifices, right? They worship Moloch, whatever. So here's what you got to do. The thing is like when people get to that degree where they're, you know, killing children and they're victimizing children, there's nothing that can be done, right? You just got to kill them, and you can't let any of them live, and you can't let any of their animals live, and you can't touch any of their stuff. So God tells Joshua, he says, look, tell your men, go over to those other people, wipe them out. Don't touch anything. Just kill them, kill their animals, and then leave. And make sure that you tell your people, do not touch anything. Don't get it on you, right? It's almost as if God was saying that what was wrong with these people was in part like a hygiene problem. It was something that was transferable, right? You could get it from touch. You know, the way that we get the common cold or the flu or whatever, we get it from touching dirty things and then rubbing our eyes and whatever. So God tells Joshua, tell your people, don't touch anything. After you're done wiping these people out, don't touch anything, right? So he does. Now Joshua doesn't actually go himself. He tells his warriors, like, you guys go and you do this. And then they did that, and they came back, and you know, everything was fine. You know, they were all done with their fighting, and they were at this camp, and like all this bad stuff started happening. People started getting sick and dying, and there was like just all these coincidences where, you know, just like all bad things were happening to such a degree that the Israelites were like crying out to Joshua, saying, dude, go talk to God and find out why we're getting the crap kicked out of us right now, right? Like there's so many bad things happening that this has to be like supernatural. So please, priest, go talk to, well, not priest, but you know, leader of the tribe. You go talk to God and find out why it is he's kicking the crap out of us right now. So Joshua does exactly that. He goes to God. God says, I told you, don't touch anything. And Joshua says, but we didn't. I told him that, and none of them did it. He says, one of them did, right? One of the guys that went to go wipe out, one of the warriors, right? One of the Jewish guys that went to go slaughter those people that were murdering children, he got his hands on some precious metals, right? Some jewels, some gold, some silver, whatever. Maybe some ornaments of the home. We don't really know, but he took some of the stuff, and when he brought it back into the camp where where all the families were staying, he went underneath his tent and he dug a little hole and he buried this stuff in the hole, right? And God had told Joshua, he said, look, that guy, he touched that stuff. Now you need to kill him and his family, right? Very brutal directions from the Lord, indeed. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of atheists out there who would be like, see, God's not a God of love, or whatever it is that they would say. It's like, well, you know, I'm not going to sit here and deny that that's what's in the Bible, right? But that's according to the story, that's what happened. And so the Jews, you know, that I guess they were called Israelites at that point, or Jews or whatever, they killed that guy and his family because he touched that stuff. God said, I told you not to touch this, and they did it anyways. Right? And then God brought down a crap storm on them. And then that's what they had to do to fix the problem. Right? And from that day forward, that camp, the place where they had made their encampment, was called the Valley of Achor. And that word Achor, it means trouble. Trouble. Whoa! Trouble, 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 trouble. Right? Trouble. Trouble. You're in trouble. You're being punished. It's like woe, like the valley of woe. That's what Achor means. That's why that valley was called the Valley of Achor, because God told us to not touch a thing, and we touched that thing, and God smacked the crap out of us for it. We got in trouble with God. And when we go back to Hosea, right, which was many, many hundreds of years later, God says to the people, I will give you the Valley of Achor as a door of hope. Because in this place, God is going to make it so that we let go of the things that we've been holding on to. Right? We've been holding on to some things that God told us to never touch. Right? Things like divorce. We have, look, as Christian people, we have embraced divorce. And now we pay the price for it. We are paying the price. We are in the valley of trouble. We've gotten into trouble because we've been holding on to things that God told us not to touch. Don't touch that. I could sit here and list a whole bunch of them for you, but you know what they are. Gets into politics and public education and the way that we've been printing up money and bad economic policy, like it all ties in. God told us, like, don't do this. Like I've written this whole prescription, like how to run a society. Just do that, right? And we went the other way, as Israel had done time and time and time again. And God is saying, like, I will give you this valley as a door of hope. I'm going to give you this place, right? This place of trouble. I'm going to bring you to it. And I'm going to slap all the things out of your hands that you've been holding on to. It's going to hurt. But it's going to be a door of hope. And we're going to be closer together for having gone through it together. And I will give you this as a door of hope. This time that we're going through as a people, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very painful. But you need to have hope. This is the hope. This is the correction from a loving God. And this valley of trouble is the passageway to the green valley where our vineyard awaits us. It's a beautiful passage, and I encourage you to read it. That's the show for today. Big shout out to all the patrons. Listen, if you want to support the show, you can go onto my website, archadvocate.com, that's with a hyphen in the middle, arch-advocate.com. If you want to become a monthly patron, you can do that. If you just want to send some dough, there's a PayPal link. You can do that. It's up to you, man. Or if you don't have any money, maybe you like to send your money to somebody else, that's cool too. If you go into iTunes and leave, hit subscribe, that's huge. Leave a little comment there. I would appreciate that too. That's it. That's the show for Monday. Lots to get into this week, so stay tuned, and I will talk to you tomorrow.